So welcome everyone to the application process, keeping it all in perspective. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are pleased to be able to offer this presentation. Obviously we are virtual this evening and we are doing our best to record so that we can post this and hopefully have a living record of it for anyone who wants to review anything or for anyone who is not able to join us this evening. So we're happy to have you and let's get started. I am going to go ahead. So if some of the other counselors just can keep an eye on the waiting room and let people in, that would be fantastic. So I am going to share my screen and start our presentation. All right, so college admissions, it is a very different year, as we all know. So we know that everyone is pretty anxious. The game has changed quite a bit, and that it's just a tense time, but we are here to walk you through the process. As always, we have a lot of good information available to you and to your students. And that this past week, we did senior seminars with all of our students. And that was really an introduction to common information that it was good for everyone to know. It's based on this presentation, so you're learning most of the same information that they are as well this evening. And it's a good reference for everyone to have. We will send out the presentation after we present it tonight. So tomorrow morning, I will send it out so everyone has that as well. And it always lives in the Google Classroom. So we will talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But college admissions, it's time. We are about to embark on the college admissions process. Many of our students have started it already. And so we are really excited to work with all of our students through this time. And we have some things that we've always done that remain the same and some things that are a little bit new this year. So if you have been to this presentation before, you may still learn a couple of things because some things are new, but much of the information is the same. All right, so like I said before, we really want the seniors to be a member of the Senior Seminar Google Classroom. That's where this presentation is, and like I said, a wealth of other information. And we have told them all, so now you've heard it straight from the source. Feel free to invite your parent or guardian into the Google Classroom because that shares with you as parents all of the information that they have access to. There is so much in there that we want you to know it as well. We want you to know what they know. We want you to know what we know. We want everyone to be on the same page so that you all have access to the same information that is helpful at this time. So Google Classroom, like I said, some of the topics that are in there: college essay, SAT and ACT testing is a very hot topic lately, financial aid, virtual admissions tours, the Common Application, and a month-by-month timeline checklist as well. So we want all of that information to be readily available. And so now, if Mrs. Savory is able to, I think she's going to pick up the next slides. If not, Mrs. McPeck is going to take over for her. We are having some internet difficulties at some of our houses this evening. So take it away.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So inside the Google Classroom, like Ms. Rodriguez said, there's a wealth of information. Some of the information is repetitive that we shared with our rising seniors back in the spring. That information is in the form of 3 questionnaires that we asked our students back in the spring to fill out. We know the spring was a little hectic, so not all the students were able to complete those, which is fine. But we do ask that the students fill those forms out prior to them requesting any transcripts from their school counselors. So those forms include a student questionnaire, a parent information sheet, which we ask our parents to do a little homework as well, and an activity sheet. And embedded in this presentation, when you click on the blue links, it will bring you to where those forms are. They are located not only in the Google Classroom, but they are also located in Naviance. So the next slide kind of gives you an understanding of, if you have access to your student's Naviance account, where those particular forms are. So we've been asking the students, to email the forms once they've filled them out. And once the students are in Naviance, to find those forms, there's instructions to show them exactly where those are. So Naviance is one of our tools that we use to send all of our documents electronically to the colleges. So while the students are in Naviance, we have asked them prior to when they sit to have a meeting with their school counselor, if they could update their college list while they're in there. They should also be making sure that they have an understanding of the application type that the colleges are using. So the majority of the colleges are on what is called the common application, but there are some colleges out there that use their own electronic applications, but we will still send our documents through Naviance using it's called eDocs system. There's information on a video, which is the link on this slide, on how the students can match their common application with their Naviance account. It's a step-by-step process. It probably takes about 2 or 3 minutes. It's fairly easy, but the reason why the common application needs to be linked to the Naviance account is because there's a waiver that we need to have the students sign, and that waiver, it's called the FERPA waiver. And that basically just gives us permission to send those documents, the transcripts, to their colleges, and also gives us permission to send their letters of recommendation as well. So speaking of letters of recommendation, by now the students should have asked 2 teachers back in the spring to write their letters of recommendation for college. Most schools require at least 1, but we always have the students ask for 2. And we have told the students, we've instructed them to check in with those teachers that they asked last spring, and to give them an update of the list of their college deadlines, so that the teachers are aware when their first deadline is, so that they can upload their letters of recommendation in Naviance. And the teachers are responsible for sending along those letters of recommendation via Naviance, via the eDocs system. Okay. And just one little question that keeps popping up is that in the common application, there is where the students are signing their FERPA waiver, there is a section where it says request recommenders, but that feature we do not use. We have Naviance. We're lucky enough as a district to pay for the Naviance service, so we don't need the students to be requesting the recommenders via the Common App, and we've explained that to the students as well. And I think Ms. Kroll is going to talk about the testing.
Hello, good evening, everybody. This year, Hingham High School is hosting an SAT test on October 3rd. This deadline has closed for registration, but students who have previously registered for this SAT will be able to take that at Hingham. And we are also offering another test date, which is October 14th. And this is going to be for all of our seniors in the high school on Wednesday. The majority, so that's the testing date, and that's when we're going to offer them at Hingham High School. Majority of schools this year and this coming school year for college schools that students are applying to, majority of the schools are going optional, test optional. That being said, we do highly recommend that all of our students do the research necessary and double check all the college requirements that the colleges that they're applying to require. Sorry, do we mute? Okay. In addition to that, we want to make sure that any student that is applying into a special program, whether it be nursing or engineering, double check, because although a school may say they're test optional, they may not be test optional for specific majors, again, such as nursing and engineering. So we're just reminding our students to double check, and it's a great way to make connections with an admissions rep if they can't find the information easily on the website, to reach out and ask that question. We also remind our students constantly that they cannot use their Hingham Gmail as their primary email on applications. They must use their own personal email account, not to use their school email. As it turns out, if they use their school email, we learned that they were unable to get emails from outside the Hingham district. So we strongly encourage that, to make sure students do not use their Hingham Gmail as primary email on applications. And, okay, so the different types of admissions. Your students now are making decisions, they're getting their list together, they're talking about whether they want to apply, early decision, early action. And so I'm just going to go over the admission terms here. The first one is rolling admissions. And rolling admissions is a student who can, a school that allows students to apply when they want to apply. And as the applications are coming in, the admissions reps are reading these applications and making their decisions and sending them back out to the students that have applied. Early decision, ED, is a binding decision. And it's your student, the parents and the students and the counselor all have to sign a legal document stating that if we are in agreement that if our child is admitted and accepted, early decision, that they waive their right to all the other schools. It is regardless of financial decisions that are made in regards to merit scholarship or financial scholarships or any other decision made, that if you're accepted and you apply ED, that you are legally bound to attend that college. Okay, so that is a decision that is not made lightly, and it's a conversation that has to be made or should be made with your child and yourself, because a lot of factors come into place. And once accepted, or if accepted, early decision, and if students have applied to other schools, they then have to reach out to those other schools and let them know, thank you very much, please withdraw my application as I have been accepted early decision to this school. And we strongly stress that with our students, because by reaching out to the colleges and letting them know that they've been accepted to an institution early decision and to withdraw their application, it could open up a seat for one of their classmates to be then accepted to a school that could be their first choice. Early action, EA, is pretty much what it says. Students apply early and they find out early. So that depends on, what early is for one school is not for another. There's October 15th deadlines, November 1st, November 15th, December 1st could be an early action. So that's where students have to pay close attention to their deadlines when they're picking their schools and make sure that they have everything needed and ready to go prior to that deadline. Single choice early action is a fairly new development, if you will. It's a school asking a student to apply early action and asking them not to apply early to any other school. Then there's regular decision. Very often students will have a solid list in September and October. They've applied to their schools, they're done by November, and then come January, they hear about another school from a friend or a classmate or a teacher, and they do a little research and they think, wow, I think this school really interests me, and their deadline is not until March, I'm going to apply. And that's perfectly fine, and they won't find out later, maybe not until May, but that is perfectly acceptable. Some students apply regular decision to all their schools. Okay, so the decision making is a family decision on what's best for you and your family in regards to the cost of an application, the cost of the college. Early action is not binding, and it's very popular. Students can get their applications in early and find out early and breathe a sigh of relief, and in most cases, you know, enjoy second semester a lot more than they did the first semester.
Yeah.
Right? And we do ask that if you are going to apply early, to notify your counselor sooner than later, as well as notifying the teachers for their letters of recommendation. So everything is prepared in the best manner that it can possibly be done. Am I still going? Yeah. Should I apply early? One more. Should I apply early? It depends. Is this my first choice? Is it a great match? First choice, a lot of things come into play here. Loving a school is one thing, but do you have what they're looking for in regards to finances, of course, in regards to your GPA? SATs, if that matters. Most cases this year, SATs are not going to come into play, or standardized test scores. Is it a location that I can get to and get home to easy, if that's, you know, important to you? So there's a lot of decisions to be made, and a lot of thought, a lot of writing down pros and cons about that, applying early. Again, it's not binding. That's okay. Have I done the appropriate amount of research? Of course, it's difficult now for students to get onto a campus. There are not that many official tours being done on campus this year, but there is a lot of research being done by the administration of these colleges and admissions, demonstrating interest of students. They are tracking that information. So we encourage our students, get onto their websites, read their blogs, reach out to a professor, reach out to the admissions rep. Any way to show your interest appropriately is going to be demonstrated. Do my credentials meet the requirements? And that's, again, check out the website. What are they looking for? What do they want? What's their accepted average GPA? Do you fall in that range? And that's where the counselors can really help, and parents as well, by looking on Naviance and looking at the graphs. Of course, we know more background information on who's been accepted, rejected, or waitlisted on our end as counselors, so we're more than happy to help our students with that as well. But Naviance is a tremendous help to you and to us in that regard. And again, a family decision, can I attend the school regardless of the financial aid package? And that goes back to the early decision. If you do apply ED, number one question, can I afford this school if I am not given any money? If I have to pay the full amount, can I go there? So that is a major decision to be made by the family. And as counselors as well, if we're signing that on behalf that you've told us, yes, regardless of the cost, regardless of anything else, our child will go to that school. We're signing that, so we want to make sure that we're all in agreement. It's very important.
Great job. Thank you, Ms. Kroll.
Thank you, Kelly.
So hi, everyone. Thank you for attending. So I am going to talk about what a balanced list looks like. You're going to hear counselors refer to the college list and making sure that kids strike a balance with their options very often. What we're looking for the students to achieve throughout their research, which is still ongoing. We know that kids are at different parts of this process, and that's perfectly fine. We meet every student where they're at. But you will hear the terms reach, target, and safety a lot. So when we're asking students to identify these types of schools, we are looking for students to find 2 to 3 in the reach range. So what this means is that they do have criteria that is solid, but what the college is expecting is a little bit above what they have. And that's okay. I mean, every student that we work with has reaches, and they should. This is their one opportunity to go for it, and we want to support what their reach schools are. So that is appropriate for students to have reach schools on their list. The bulk of their list should really consist of those target schools, which of course are the hardest ones to find, right? And that's what a lot of my students will come in and say, like, I have no problem coming up with a safety and no problem coming up with my reaches. It's trying to find that in between. And that is really tricky, right? Because you're asking the students to identify with a school that criteria-wise, they are right on target for what they're looking for, and that can be hard. So we work a lot with the students on finding those schools. Of course, the 1 to 2 schools to be safe, that is extremely important. I always try to say to my students that it is really important for them to have these, because we really care too much about them for them not to have the safety schools. So as much as I know it can be a really difficult conversation to have, we're really comfortable having that conversation, because we don't want them to just go in with false hope. It's really important that there is transparency with this process and that they know what they're getting into as young adults. So we work really hard on teasing through that list. And we really want the kids to be happy and satisfied. So if they feel like, you know what, Mrs. McPeck, I do have a safety, but I don't love it, I don't even think I would go there if I got in, then we're going to look at that and we're going to try to find other options. So this is something that's ongoing. You're going to talk about it a lot at home. It's nothing that's done in one day. It's really a process that they're going to go through with us. So we want to keep that conversation going. So that's the balanced list. Ms. Kral did mention a little bit just about this. I know we hear all these catchphrases with admissions, but the demonstrated interest. We know kids are in a brand new landscape right now and we're all navigating it together, but we want them to stay positive and to still stay invested and motivated, because there are different opportunities for them to demonstrate their interest to a college. So the virtual tours, I think the kids are pretty comfortable with what that looks like. Certainly if there are some campuses that are offering in person and it happens to be a school that you like and it's a drive that parents don't mind making, then you can explore that option. Very rarely are interviews offered, and they might look differently now. They might be more of a Zoom conference. That's okay. The kids should still check that box if it's a school that they really want to attend. There's also, I was chatting with a student today, and there are also sometimes videos that are posted on college websites where a student can watch it and then plug in their email address. So that just would signify to a student or a parent, oh, this might be something that they're tracking. So again, we don't want the kids spreading themselves too thin. I don't want them, none of us want them emailing every school endlessly about fluff, right? Because they're too busy. It's really to try to just invest their time and effort and energy in the schools that they're really interested in, and making sure that they're doing everything that they can. So if they have questions about what that looks like, they can definitely chat with us about that. I think, oh, I'm sorry. And the HHS specific college admissions. So we are so fortunate every year to have college reps that come visit us in person. This year it's virtually done. But we have worked really hard. Ms. Savory's worked really hard at developing relationships with these reps. It's fantastic because we have a direct line of communication to the school. This way students have access to hear about a college. So these are relationships that we really value for our students. So those are something that students can sign up for. In Naviance, it's very simple. They'll be able to sign up and just attend via Zoom. But we recommend that the kids take advantage of that, because that is a way that they can make a personal connection without actually having to go to the college. So that's a huge plus for our kids. Which brings me to, so the college visits that we have, I think, you know, right now, I think the kids are starting to understand what Zoom is like in the classroom. And I think some teachers are really asking kids to have certain Zoom etiquette. So the kids are really learning different expectations for all these platforms. So there's an adjustment period, but we just want to be really clear and transparent, that what our reps are continuing to tell us and what their message to us is that they're really looking at some of these key points that we mentioned in this slide. They really want to make sure that students are respectful. I know it's so hard for kids to be in their comfort zone of being home, but we want them to be out of bed, and we want them to be sitting upright. We want them to dress appropriately. It's kind of like when they're with us at school, they're like our kids, and we want to make sure that they're represented in the best way possible. We want them to put their best foot forward. So these conversations we're going to be having with the kids a lot. We want to make sure their cameras are on. That is hugely important. If they came down to the post-secondary, planning office, they would be face-to-face with a rep. So it's that same sort of respect that we want the kids to give the rep, regardless of where they are, where they physically are. Making sure that they're muted when they're not talking. We don't want them, eating Chipotle while they're like having a conversation. And it's really important that they stay seated and stay present. And all these things are really, I think, only going to help them when they're going off to the next phase, because Zoom might be in our near future. We want our kids to make sure that they, have been practicing all these good tips before they're entering the next phase of life. So is that it? Is that done for me? Yes, George? Okay, great.
All right, so is my application complete? So there's going to be application materials coming from a few different sources. There's going to be materials coming from your student, from us in the school counseling office, and also from the teachers. So from the students, they need to request their transcripts in Naviance. And I think we have another slide about that. They need to notify their teachers about their deadlines, as we had mentioned already. If applicable, send your SAT or ACT scores through the College Board or ACT account. So this is really important. We do not include any standardized test scores on our transcripts. It's just your Hingham High classes and the final grades that you received. So if the student chooses to send their test scores, which again, we've said most schools are test optional at this point, they would have to log on to their College Board account for SAT scores, choose the colleges that they want to send to, and go ahead and send those. And of course, the College Board charges you for each score you send. And same thing with ACT scores. So you go onto the ACT account and send to the colleges. Students are responsible for sending in their actual applications along with the fees before the deadline. And this is important to mention too, is, if a deadline, let's say, is November 1st, we recommend that students don't wait until November 1st to send the application. You never know what's going to happen with technology or a glitch or last minute this or that. So, make sure to send in the applications prior to the deadlines. In the school counseling office, we send the students transcripts and their counselor recommendation along with our school profile. So every college does receive our profile, which has an explanation of our grades, our grading system from this past spring. And then once first term grades are available, we also send those through Naviance to the colleges, to any school that a student applied to early. And then the teachers are responsible for sending their letters of recommendations directly through Naviance as well. Okay, so transcript requests are due 2 weeks before the college deadline. So we do ask that the students give us 10 school days to process any transcript requests. This gives us time if we need to still write their letter of recommendation to do so. We also, this year, this is new, we're having the students add the colleges to the colleges I'm applying to into Naviance. In the past, if you've had older students, we have asked them to fill out what was called a record release form. We no longer have that form. So now the students are responsible for adding the colleges directly into Naviance. If they have any questions about how to do that, we're happy to assist them with that. And then once they once they add their schools to the colleges I'm applying to, they also have to request the transcripts. And we do have a short little video here on the PowerPoint. So when you view the PowerPoint at home, you can click on the link and it'll bring you directly to the video of how to do that. But basically it's just kind of one button that you push on Naviance. Pretty simple. Okay, so there are changes obviously this year with college admissions and colleges in general with COVID. So, you know, when you're thinking about colleges to apply to, who knows what's going to be happening next fall. So you want to just keep in mind, you know, maybe the classes might be remote. Would you still want to attend this college if classes aren't in person? As I mentioned, Hingham will be alerting all colleges of our spring grading system. Students will not be penalized in any way for the changes that were made to our grading system. So colleges have told us this over and over and over again. They know that every high school in the country has done, you know, something different with how they've graded their students. Some did pass fail, some did credit, no credits, you know, there's all different systems. So, you know, they understand that and you don't have to worry about that. Colleges also understand that many sports and activities were canceled in the spring. So there's no need to say, you know, I didn't get to play lacrosse, I didn't get to play whatever. The colleges understand that, that they, you know, they take it into consideration. So. Colleges are now tracking demonstrated interests virtually, like we had mentioned already. You'll hear that a lot. So make sure to do virtual tours, anything you can, click on those emails that they send. And this is important information, do not answer the COVID question on the Common App unless your life was significantly impacted. So like I said, you know, they know that sports were canceled. They know everything, you know, there was a lot of things that happened in the springtime. So if there was a significant impact on your life, then it's okay to answer that question and explain that. Maybe, you know, a parent lost their job, maybe a student lost a loved one. Those things are significant life changes. So if the student has any questions about that, they can ask their counselor if they should include it in their application. Okay, financial aid, one of our favorite topics. So if you're going to apply for financial aid, the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. We do recommend that everybody fill this out because some colleges will not even give merit money unless the FAFSA is completed. So it is in your best interest to complete the FAFSA. It is free to do so. It is a government website. You can see fafsa.gov. Do not go to fafsa.com. Do not pay any money. You should never pay any money to get money, okay? So the FAFSA opens every, well, the last couple of years now, October 1st. This is great because it uses your tax information from last year. So, you know, most likely everybody has filed their taxes. You already have all the information at your fingertips. So anytime after October 1st, you can start doing the application. We recommend that you do it as soon as possible because they do kind of give out money as people submit applications. And every college in the country will accept the FAFSA. That's a universal financial aid form. Some colleges also require what's called the CSS profile. That is found on the College Board website. That also opens October 1st, and it's mostly used by private colleges. So if you are unsure if your college requires it, you can do one of two things. You can go on the College Board website and look at their list, or you can go to each of the colleges that your student's applying to, look at the financial aid page of those colleges, and it'll tell you exactly what forms are required. One other quick thing to mention about finances, we do have a Hingham High scholarship application that comes out every year, typically in January, and that is really important for your students to fill out. It's one application, fairly quick, and it puts your student in the running for a lot of different scholarships in town. So we really will recommend that you guys fill that out as well. And of course, we'll remind the students and the parents as it gets closer, but that's typically in January. All right, Mrs. Rodriguez.
All right. So one other thing to remember about financial aid, typically we have a financial aid evening every year. And what MEFA is doing, MEFA is the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority. And instead of coming out and doing programs like they did in the past, they're having a really robust webinar series. And so some of them are live sessions, some of them are recorded sessions. I think all of their live sessions turn into recorded sessions at some point. So they have a wealth of information about the financial aid process as well. And that's what we will be referring our families to. So when we post the presentation in an email tomorrow, we will go ahead and give you links for the MEFA information as well, so that you can seek that out on your own time and at your own convenience. So these are just websites and resources for all of our students and families. So tonight is the September 29th presentation that we have listed there. And then we did our college application workshops are ongoing Wednesdays after school, run by Ms. Savory from 2 to 4 p.m. So there have been instructions in the Google Classroom and communication to students as to how to sign up for that. So our big message is keep calm and apply to college if that is where you are headed, and we will help you all through that. The actual presentation part of this evening. So we have some time for some questions. We have you until about 8 o'clock. So we have some questions. We will try, let's see if this technology works, and we can do, if you can use the participants section to virtually raise your hand, that would be delightful. And if not, if no one else is speaking and you can unmute yourself and jump in to ask a question, that would be fantastic. So I see that Phyllis Torres has the first question.
Raise your hand.
Hi, are you offering an ACT test at Hingham High?
That's a good question. That's something that we're exploring. We're trying to see if we can pull that off. We don't have anything nailed down at this point quite yet, but that is something that we are exploring. And as soon as we know anything, we will communicate that with families, because we know the SAT is not the only game in town, that a lot of students like the ACT or want to have that, that opportunity as well. So next we have screen name Siobhan.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, my daughter has, well, her counselor, she's under the alphabet, so would have been Ms. Raposa, and I know that she's not here now. Is there anything, she has been in contact with her about the forms that she filled out last spring and all of that, but is there anything special that we should be looking out for, and who should she primarily address her questions to?
So Mrs. Savory and I can both serve as resources right now. Mrs. Savory is the post-secondary planning counselor, so always for all counselors. She's our extra special backup and runs that office. So she offers a lot of programming, and so some quick questions can go to her as well. We do have a substitute lined up. We're finalizing that process now, so we're hoping by the beginning of next week we'll have a counselor in. And we will publicize that to all of Mrs. Raposa's families, so you will know who it is, what the contact information is, and have an extra resource there as well.
Okay, so, but there isn't anything that we don't need to contact both Raposa and you folks at the same time? I guess that's what I'm trying to.
No, if for any.
So will she submit the counselor recommendation that she said that she was going to Naviance on her own, or do we need to get that from her and then?
No, she will take care of that on her own. She'll write the recommendation and upload it into Naviance, and then we will take care of sending it off and making sure that everything is sent. Yes.
Great, thanks.
Thanks. All right, Sean's iPad. is next.
Mhm.
All right. Sean's iPad, one more chance. All right, we'll try and come back. Kay Krashma.
Oh, thank you, Heather. Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt either. I'm still kind of learning Zoom, so I didn't know how to raise my hand, but now I know, so thank you.
No worries.
I actually have a question. If a student wants to turn in a recommendation that's not by a teacher, but maybe, let's say, an employer or a coach, how does that recommendation get submitted? Is it done through Naviance as well? How do we go about getting it done?
I can take that one, Heather, if you,
Perfect.
is that okay? So that, we get that question a lot, so thank you for asking it. So we want to make sure that the message is that it is okay for students to have outside recommenders, but please know that that is not a requirement. Colleges are very, straightforward in terms of what they actually need. But we also know that some employers or some coaches have a perspective that maybe a teacher doesn't or a counselor doesn't. So we don't send outside letters. What the student would need to do is ask that employer or that coach to send through email that letter to all of the colleges. So it would just go to the contact, to the admissions contact. And I would just suggest that the subject line be the student's name, maybe date of birth, because they match everything with date of birth in college admissions. So I think that that's a sure way to make sure that that letter ends up in that file to be reviewed.
All right, Gabby Youssef is next.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Yvette Youssef for Gabby. So my question is, if we apply early action to any schools, does that increase, decrease the probability of entrance to that school, particularly if you're looking at reach schools? And is that a high risk thing to do? That's it.
I can answer that. So we encourage our students to apply to schools early action that are safeties or target schools. They're really looking for like the strongest applicants first. So if a school is a reach, we wouldn't recommend that they apply early action to that school. We'd really recommend that they do early decision. I mean, they do regular decision to a reach school. Or if you are going to do early decision, that's okay to do to a reach school. But should have safeties and targets for early action.
All right, Sean's iPad, are you back with us? Just given another chance. I'm thinking no. Okay, moving along. Kim with the smiley face.
Oh, I see Sean's iPad is back.
Hi, I'm sorry. No, my question is, I'm good, but thank you. This is Kim with a smiley face.
Fabulous.
Okay. I don't know. I didn't set this up, and I don't know why it does that, but every Zoom meeting I go into, everyone laughs. So, hi.
Don't worry.
But thank
That's
you
awesome.
all for everything. You're amazing.
Thank you, thank you. All right, Sean, are you ready to go?
I am, I think. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
All right. I was letting the dog out when you asked me the first time. I couldn't get back to unmute in time. And then the second time I came back, it just wouldn't unmute. So I turned my camera on and now you can see me.
This is life in the Zoom age.
It is.
There you go. It's just like work. My question is, the financial aid you said is based on tax information. It isn't appropriate, or it isn't going to impact me directly because I didn't lose my job in all this nonsense, but I know a lot of people did. So is there an opportunity for anything else? I have a brother who's going through the same thing, and their school isn't as involved. So I'm trying to help him too.
Okay.
I can answer this. I think the best advice would be to have any parent call the financial office directly of the school that your child's applying to and state your case and let them know what is happening and what's different from the previous year. Because there are so many families that are affected by this, but it's always been told to us, whether it's been an admission, a financial aid officer coming from a school to talk to our parents, or the MIFA presentation, the best resource is the school itself and to let them know and deal directly with the financial aid office.
And just to add to that too, I think when students apply to college, they're assigned an admissions counselor who reviews their file. They're also assigned a financial aid person. So there is financial aid people who are assigned a caseload. So you do have that one. It's nice to always talk to that same person. So you know you don't have to retell your story over and over again. So you want to try to form that connection with the financial aid person, as Ms. Kroll mentioned, but that's not as advertised as like an admissions counselor is, but please know that they are assigned a caseworker, if you will, in financial aid.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Next, we have Sarah Collins.
Hi, I just have a quick question about the SAT offered at school on October 14th. Do the kids have the option to take the essay with that one?
So we did order a few with essay just in case the students need to do that. And that, from my understanding, they're starting to change things. But as far as we know, they've only changed things for Saturday. If students opt to take the essay when they arrive on the day of, they are still able to do that as far as we know at this point. If we learn something different, we will email everyone registered for the 14th and let them know that. But yes, that should be perfectly okay. We do have a number of tests with essay, and that should be fine.
Great, thank you. I mean, we know we need it, so can she just say, I want the essay now? Like, she signed up for the essay in October 3rd too, so hopefully that one doesn't get canceled in the next couple days. I don't think it will, but you never know.
Why don't you reach out to Denise Stanley? So dstanley@hinghamschools.org. She is helping keep track of all of the test takers for that day, and just make a note that she would like the essay, and then we'll have that.
Terrific, thank you so much.
Sure.
Good night.
Thanks, you too. Maura Gallagher, you're next. All right, do we have Maura with us still? All right, we will pause on Maura Gallagher. We will go back to her, and we will go to the Mullins family next.
Hi, I have questions about the teacher recommendations. I guess I'm not really clear on how that works. It sounds like you're saying the student will inform the teacher about what schools they're applying to, and then the teacher is responsible for sending their recommendation letter onto those schools. So does the student ever see the recommendation letter that's written?
Generally not. So that's what the FERPA waiver is all about. The FERPA waiver is the Family Educational Right to Privacy Act, and part of it is you're choosing whether you waive your right to see the recommendation or you retain your right to see the recommendations. And so what the FERPA explains when you go through that process, and what we suggest as counselors, is that you do in fact waive your right. Because that signifies to a college that you have every confidence that the information coming from that source of information, such as a recommender or your school, is honest and accurate. And so that you have not required to see it before it goes out. And so that indicates to colleges that, you know, that's the whole truth, and everything is, you know, what people mean to say. Now, I will back that up by saying, if anyone at Hingham High School agrees to write a recommendation for a student, it is only going to be positive. So you don't need to worry, oh my goodness, I wonder what people are saying. I want to see that recommendation beforehand, because if they did not only have positive things to say about the student, they would say, I politely decline at this time to write a recommendation for you. I suggest you might go find a different teacher. I've had teachers in the past say, you know what, I think you might be able to find someone that connected with you a little bit better. If you get in a pinch and you need someone, I will definitely write you a positive letter. It may not be as over the top as maybe someone you connected a little bit better with, but I can write something positive for you, so please let me know that. So our teachers are pretty well versed in writing recommendations and handling that with students, and making sure that they're putting their students in the best light.
Okay, that was really helpful.
Could I just add, in regards to the list of colleges to the teachers that have agreed to write the letters. They don't need to write a list of the colleges. They just need to tell the teacher what their deadline, their first deadline is. The teachers will have access to what colleges once they log into their Naviance account and see the students' list of colleges.
The only, sorry, I'm gonna keep adding. The only caveat to that though is if students do have like the first batch of schools that they apply to, and then they go back and decide to add schools later, the teachers aren't logging on to Naviance and remembering every single school that every single kid applied to. So if a student does add a couple more at a later date, they do need to let the teacher know to go on in again and send to those additional schools, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
okay.
All of that makes sense. Thank you very much.
Fabulous, you're welcome. All right, did Maura Gallagher hop back on with us?
I can hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. I'm just confirming, I think I know the answer already, but for the October 14th date SAT, there are no subject tests being offered?
Correct. The College Board is not offering subject tests on SAT school day, which is what that type of test is called.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank
Good
you.
question. Absolutely, thank you. And Deirdre Beyer is next.
Sorry, technical difficulties.
Don't you worry, happens to everyone.
I just wanted to know, and this is very general, but are you guys getting any sort of sense about next year with students deferring this year, if there's going to be like less spots at colleges? I know it's hard to say, but I'm very curious.
That actually might be a super great question for Mrs. Savory, although I've lost her tile and I don't know if maybe her internet kicked out again. Because she's the one who's actually talking directly to college reps this year. In the spring, the information that they were giving us is that they are, oh, she's back in, I'm admitting her again. They are being very mindful of managing their enrollment. So they are kind of building into their admissions process, knowing that there might be a certain percentage of kids who want to transfer in or who have deferred for a year. So I don't think they're vastly cutting back. They're just trying to really tightly manage what's going on this year. So Mrs. Savory, the question was,
yes. Sorry, my internet is just not working tonight.
Don't you worry. So the question was about, are we hearing from college reps anything in terms of they will be admitting fewer students this year because a number of kids took a gap year or delayed going to school because of the whole situation?
Sure. So, so far, I mean, we just started our college rep visits last Wednesday, so I've only met with a handful of colleges. But so far, the majority of the colleges have said that, yes, they have had a good handful of students that have deferred, but it hasn't been overwhelming. The only sort of area where they see that it could be impacted is majors that have a limited number of seats. So for instance, like a nursing program that might have like 150 seats every year. If say 10 nursing students deferred this year, that's going to take away from 10 seats for, you know, the next year. So programs that tend to have limited number of seats. But for the majority of those universities that, you know, don't have you apply to a particular major, then the deferral, they still have to fill the slots. So the deferral process isn't affecting it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, it looks like we have room for about 2 more questions, and luckily we have about 2 hands raised. So Dana, you are next.
Thank you, everyone. This has been very informative. I'm asking another question about standardized tests. My daughter is registered for the 3rd and the 14th, but she is applying to several schools November 1st. Are we hearing when those scores will be reported, and will they have an option to choose, you know, the best scores from the various tests?
So that's an awesome question, and I forgot to say anything about that, so I'm glad you brought that up. So November 4th is the date that the October 14th scores will be available, which is fine. So some people go, oh no, that's right after November 1st, but that's okay, because Colleges with a November 1st deadline do not download and begin to read every single application on November 2nd. They sort through them, match things, complete application files for quite a while after that. So it is perfectly fine to wait to see a score on November 4th, and then if you like it, rush it to the school. You know, in College Board's infinite wisdom, get to pay an extra fee to rush it. But if you can afford that and that is something that you can do, then that's perfectly okay. Schools won't, it's close enough that they will still consider it under early. So we don't need to worry about, December would be a little too late usually for that process, but getting scores back on November 4th for a November 1st or 15th deadline is perfectly fine.
And typically, just to add, Heather, too, and Kath, correct me if I'm wrong, but on the Common App, there's a spot where the test date, they list the test dates that they're, even if they haven't taken them, it's like intended test dates. So a lot of college reps are clued into that. So if they only see, you know, not a spring test, because those weren't a thing, but if they see an earlier test and then they see, oh, this kid's also testing in like October 14th, he probably wants me to wait for those. So they're intuitive, that the process itself, so they do know, so kids can just put that information on the app too.
So you would hold off on reporting the October 3rd. You'd wait to see what you get for the other test scores and then choose your best.
Yeah.
Okay.
And colleges super score SATs, so you can send, if you know, depending on how it all falls out, you could send both scores and they'll super score it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, I have a couple more hands raised, so let's see if we can go super, super quick. But Kim, again. Kim with a smiley face? Nope, gone. Okay, Stacey Havens.
So my question is, on when you say that you're going to go test optional to a school because you don't know what your score is on your SAT, and then you go back and you say, okay, I got a good score, now I don't want to be test optional. Can you do that?
You can. So if you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but once you submit scores, even if you said I'm going to be test optional, if they have the scores, they evaluate you based on the scores. So if you send test scores, you've now revoked your test optional option, and you are asking them to consider your scores as part of the admissions process.
And can you self-report? I mean, so a lot of schools are saying you can self-report. Do you just send it via like the SAT board just to get it in?
It depends on the school. If they allow self-report, that's okay. Many of them do want it officially. So the self-reporting schools usually say, eventually we're going to need it officially.
Right.
So yeah, but if they accept it in the beginning, self-report, that's perfectly fine. All right, last question. We'll go to Maureen Prestia. I hope I didn't murder your last name. I'm sorry.
No, you did a great job. So because schools are test optional, when should the student decide if they want to send the test score? I heard that if it's above the average test score of that school, they should send it, but if it's below, they should not send it. How do you make that determination without hurting your chances of getting in?
Talk to your counselor. We can help you decide. We can look at what the score is. We can look at average scores. We can take all of the knowledge that we know about you as a student and help you make that decision. Ultimately, it's the family's decision, but we have experience and we have a lot of nuggets of information that we can share. So I would encourage you to talk with your counselor.
And this is also when the student attends an admissions rep coming into the high school. I mean, virtually the tours for the colleges, the admissions reps meeting with our students. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy Savory, but they do touch upon this and will let the students know usually.
Sure, they'll let the students know, you know, what their averages are. And so a student can kind of get a good feel for whether they were near their averages or not. Yeah.
Okay, so you have like a certain amount of time to send the test score, is that correct?
Well, it takes, I mean, after a deadline, you can ask that would be a good question and demonstrated interest reaching out to an admissions office. But yes, they only, after a certain point, they're reviewing the file and they will no longer take new information. So it's not a week. it's not 2 months.
Right.
Somewhere
Depends on the
in between.
college.
It depends on the college. So that would be a really good question for an admissions rep saying, you know, we don't think we're sending scores, but I'm taking it on this test date. If I do decide that I do like that score, how long, how much time do I have? Yeah, basically.
And so what do you do at that point? You go into the College Board account and just send it?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a school that accepts self-reports, then you can just say, you know, you can do a screenshot of the College Board website where your scores were published. Or if they need it officially, then yes, you go to the College Board or the ACT website and ask to have it rushed. Depending on the testing sites will tell you if you requested test score on this date, this is how long it takes us to get it to the institution. So working with the institution and looking at that information on the ACT or the SAT, you'll figure out if you need it rushed or not.
All right, that's great. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. All right, so anyone else who had a lingering question, reach out to your school counselor, send us an email. We really thank you for attending tonight. We know it's a really trepidatious time. People are really nervous. We hope we calmed the anxiety a little bit. We never can do it completely. But speaking of anxiety, I'm just going to put in a plug for, we have a local psychotherapist, Lynn Lyons, who has written books about managing anxiety. And I forgot to put this in the email. So a gigantic shout out to the HEF for sponsoring the program for Lynn Lyons. Next Tuesday, October 6th at 7 p.m. virtually, we sent a link to every primary email in X2 throughout the district this afternoon. 1-hour presentation on managing anxiety in this difficult age. So I encourage everyone, well, 1,000 of you to log on because we have 1,000 spots open with our school Zoom account. So we hope you join us for that. So thanks everyone for coming tonight. We really enjoyed the presentation and we look forward to working with your students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.